Hello, my name is Ekaterina. I'm glad to see you on my channel, and today I'm going to tell you about the names of clothing parts. We need to know this so that we can understand each other. Not to show off like, oh, I use terminology. No. It's so that you can understand my explanations and so that you can ask questions, because beginners always have more questions. And the problem is that a person can't put into words what isn't working for them, what they're concerned about. Here's a real-life example. So someone writes, when I attach the round part to the alignment notches that are located at the front and the back on the top surface, I find that I am left with exactly an extra 2 centimeters of space remaining under my hand. What should I do? So the phrase, I have an extra 2 centimeters under my hand, makes me think that probably they're talking about a sleeve they're trying to baste in. The armhole, and it turns out that the sleeve cap is 2 centimeters bigger than the armhole. So we shouldn't be solving riddles, but rather understanding each other. This long question goes like this. My sleeve cap now is 2 centimeters bigger than the armhole. What should I do? You see, there are certain specific terms that you really need to know in order to understand not just me, but the whole context. But also the books you might read and other bloggers, or if you decide to take courses so that you can actually understand what the instructors are telling you. So today we're talking about shoulder garments. That is, these are items that stay on a person and don't fall off because they rest on the shoulders. These include t-shirts, tank tops, dresses, jackets, blazers, and sundresses. All of these are considered shoulder garments. And shoulder garments, at the very least, have a front piece. That's the front part. For example, the front part of a t-shirt is called the front piece. I'm wearing a long-sleeve shirt, and this front part is called the front piece. And the back is called the back piece. It's a bit easier to remember here. The back is called the back piece, where your back is, and the front is not called the front, but the front piece. So the part of the front and back pieces that faces the neck, this part, is called the neckline or neck opening. For now, don't pay attention to this strip here. Just ignore it for now. It has its own separate name. We're talking about the part of the front and back pieces that faces the neck. That's the neckline. The neckline line. It can be fitted right up to the neck, or it can be cut significantly lower, but it's still called the neckline. Next, the part of the front and back pieces that faces the sleeve. It's called the armhole. See, I've removed the sleeve. Now there's no sleeve. That's it, forget about it. The part that faces from the back to the arm and from the front to the arm is called the armhole. When discussing garment construction, we refer to the back armhole and the front armhole. Additionally, a standard shoulder garment is also characterized by the shoulder line, the side seam line, and the finished bottom hemline. At least there are 2 pieces if we're talking about a tank top, so that's the minimum number of pieces. A tank top is composed of both a front panel and a back panel, and then there are also the sleeves. That makes it 3 pieces already. The front can be made from a variety of different parts. The front can also be sliced horizontally. In fact, any garment, its front and back, can be cut into any number of pieces. It all depends on what the modeler or designer has in mind. Now, if we have horizontal sections of fabric that are cut off and shaped at the very top of a garment, that specific structural piece is what we call a yoke. For example, take a look at this particular classic men's shirt. Notice this specific part right here on the back. Here it is. The horizontal upper section is separated. This is called a yoke. There can also be a yoke on the front. But I don't have such an item right now. In addition to that, the yoke can be stitched onto the garment. That is, you can see it right here on the shirt. It's a sewn-on yoke. It forms a single piece with the back when I sew it on here. There are also loose yokes. For example, a loose yoke. That is, the back continues underneath, and on top, there is another separate piece. It exists independently along the lower edge. Here, it is sewn into the seams. This is also a yoke, but it's a loose one. A garment with a shoulder seam may have a closure or it may not have one. For example, a t-shirt does not typically feature a closure. The front panel is a single continuous piece of fabric, but the front panel can also consist of two separate pieces and have a closure. So, the specific section of the front panel that is positioned directly against the closure, so this line and this line, this is called the edge line. And if we've cut the front panel, we need to finish the edges somehow. You can easily finish these edges by using a placket technique. So, on a shirt, a placket is most often used. A placket is essentially a narrow piece of fabric. It can be a separate piece sewn on, like here. Look, on this shirt with us. It can be a sewn-on placket. So here we have the front panel, and here is the placket itself. On this side, it's a sewn-on placket. Or it can be cut as one with the front, meaning it's a wide facing, but it's not just a simple facing. It serves a very specific structural purpose for the garment. A facing is only used at the bottom, but here on the fastening, it's also called a placket. For example, on one side, the placket is cut as one with the front, and on the other side, it's a separate sewn-on placket. There can be sewn-on plackets on both sides, or plackets cut as one with the front on both sides. But please remember, this long and narrow strip of fabric that finishes off the raw edges of the fastening is called a placket. There can also be a facing. For example. Now we turn it over, and you can see that this is the wide section. Well, since it is a double-breasted garment, the facing here is very wide to accommodate the overlap. It can also be narrower, and garments can have a lining or be unlined. But this wide, large part goes all the way up to the very top of the neckline. It completely runs precisely along the front panel edge and continues all the way up here into the neckline. This specific part is called a facing. So, as you can see, the front panel can be a single piece, or it can have a fastening. And what kind of fastening options do we have? We can have a placket, either attached or cut on, and a facing. That's another possible option. And sometimes the facing can also be cut on. There are three main types of sleeves to consider. These are the classic set-in sleeve, the sporty raglan sleeve, and the elegant kimono sleeve, so the set-in sleeve. This is a separate piece of fabric that is carefully joined along its sleeve cap. That is to say, it is the upper part of the sleeve, specifically this wavy section right here. This upper rounded portion of the garment is what we call the sleeve cap. The sleeve cap. And the sleeve cap is sewn into the armhole. This is a set-in sleeve. The armhole can be shaped like this, nicely curved. The armhole can also be a completely straight line. And the sleeve cap can be a straight line too, but still the part of the front or back piece that faces the arm is the armhole. And the part of the sleeve that goes into this armhole is called the sleeve cap. As you can see with a classic raglan sleeve, here it is with a classic raglan sleeve, there actually isn't this specific part that is sewn into the armhole. A raglan sleeve, look at how it is constructed. That is, right here, there would normally be a seam attaching the sleeve to the armhole. However, it is not currently there. Here, a specific portion of the front is cut together with the sleeve, and part of the back is cut together with the sleeve. But still, this line is called the armhole line, or it's also called the raglan line. But there is no actual sleeve cap here. And a raglan sleeve can have a seam on top, maybe along the upper part, or there may be no seam here at all. It really doesn't matter much. If you see that you have visible lines like these, here the lines are directed, meaning the sleeve is set in. and these stitching lines are directed toward the neckline, then you have a raglan sleeve. There is also the case of a one-piece sleeve when the sleeve and the front are a single piece. What can we have set into the neckline? So the first is the collar. Collars come in different shapes and constructions, but what is the most important thing to know about a collar? The specific part of the collar that we clearly see when we wear the garment is formally called the upper collar. And the other part of the collar that is positioned down there on the inside when the garment is actually being worn by a person is known as the undercollar. That's the undercollar, the upper collar, and the undercollar. A collar can have a stand or not have a stand. We'll look at all of that later, but the most important thing to remember is this: the upper and under collar. The upper collar is the one you see now when you put on the garment. The under collar is the one that's hidden from you. There can also be a hood at the neckline. The hood is also sewn in. For example, I have a hood. A functional hood is also sewn directly into the neckline. However, the simplest thing you can have at the neckline is a facing. This refers to the thin strip of fabric that goes all the way around the neck, just like the ones we see on t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, and sweatshirts. In garment construction, this specific piece is known as a facing. And we can see it. On knitwear, it is cut from special types of knit fabric like ribbing or cashcourse. Sometimes it can be made from the main knit fabric. This is a facing. It is not just a simple thin strip, but rather what we call a facing. And what is quite interesting is that the specific word facing also has another meaning as well. So, when we are looking to properly finish the necklines on our dresses or blouses, another wonderful option we have available is to use a facing. Now, the facing is a very common technique. Let me take a quick moment to turn this dress inside out right now so I can show you. As you can see, the facing is neatly tucked away on the inside of the garment to provide a very clean and professional finish. On the inside of the garment so that it is hidden from view. So it's just one word, but it has two meanings. For knitwear and t-shirts, the internal facing is a visible design detail. Here. This detail is visible. Here it is. And the facing can also be a hidden internal detail. If you take a close look at this part, you can see that it is carefully sewn all the way along the outer edge of the neckline, and then it neatly tucks away into the inside of the garment. This is the facing. It's on the inside, and it can also be on the outside. I'll turn the garment inside out now and show you another place where the facing can be. Now take a look. I have actually turned the trench coat inside out. Now you'll be able to see it well. Here we have the front facing. It starts at the bottom and goes up. It goes all the way up to the shoulder line and at the back right here too. We have a specific piece made from the main fabric. This is also very commonly called a facing. So, it is one single word with several different meanings. But I truly believe that you definitely will not get confused by it at all. All the terms I mentioned today, I'll make a separate list of them. I'll put it in the description under the video. Now, your task is to take this detailed list, go to your own closet, open it up, look at the clothes you have there, and try to find all the specific details I mentioned to you today. And with that, I'll say goodbye to you. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and give it a like. So I'll say goodbye to you now. All the best to everyone and much success. Goodbye.